In a small village nestled between rolling hills and endless fields lived a quiet 6-year-old girl named Ellie. She wore clothes patched by her mother, walked in worn-out shoes that barely held together, and spent her afternoons selling wildflowers at the edge of town to help her struggling family. Her world was simple, filled with chores, laughter from the wind, and dreams too big for the little space she had in life. But everything changed the day she saw something no one else dared to see. One afternoon, while wandering near the grand gates of Windermere Stables, the most luxurious horse ranch in the region, Ellie witnessed something that made her heart ache. A thin, limping horse stood in the shadows, ignored by the stable hands who passed him by. His coat was dull, his eyes full of sadness, and as he looked up, their gazes met. In that moment, Ellie felt something stir inside her, a need to help, to protect, to love. She didn't know then that this horse would change not only her life, but the lives of everyone around her. The next morning, Ellie rose before the sun, clutching a small cloth bag filled with coins, every penny she'd saved from months of selling flowers under the scorching sun. With trembling hands and a heart pounding like a drum, she walked through the golden gates of Windermere Stables once again. Inside the main office, a group of men in fine suits laughed and talked about deals worth more than Ellie could ever imagine. At the center of it all sat Mr. Calloway, the wealthy owner of Windermere Stables, his sharp eyes scanning reports as if the world revolved around numbers alone. Ellie knocked softly on the open door. The laughter stopped. All eyes turned to the little girl, standing nervously in the doorway. Mr. Calloway raised an eyebrow. "What do you want, child?" I want to buy a horse," Ellie said, her voice small but steady. For a heartbeat, silence. Then, like a storm breaking loose, the room exploded in laughter. "Buy a horse?" Mr. Calloway chuckled, wiping tears from his eyes. "You can barely afford shoes." Ellie swallowed hard, her cheeks burning, but she stood her ground. "I have money," she said, holding up the pouch. "And I know which horse I want." Mr. Calloway leaned forward, curiosity sparking beneath his smirk. "Oh, and which one would that be?" "The one in stable 4, she replied. "The one you keep forgetting." The laughter faded. Mr. Calloway's smile vanished. "That broken-down beast?" he scoffed. "Storm? He's useless. Barely eats. Can't even walk properly. Why would you want him?" Ellie took a deep breath. "Because someone has to care." Mr. Calloway studied her, calculating. Then, with a cruel grin, he leaned back. "Fine," he said. "I'll sell him to you." He paused. "For $10,000. Ellie's heart sank. That number was so far beyond her reach, it might as well have been written in another language. "I don't have that much," she whispered. "I know," Mr. Calloway sneered. "So how much do you have?" Ellie stepped forward and slowly emptied the pouch onto the desk. Coins clinked as they landed, each one earned through long days in the sun, 4 smiles for grumpy customers, and sacrifices no child should make. $87, she said proudly. The men exchanged glances. It wasn't much, but for a child, it was everything. Mr. Calloway's grin returned. "Deal," he said, pocketing the coins without looking. "Take Storm and never come back." Leading Storm out of the stables was harder than Ellie imagined. His legs trembled with every step. His ribs showed through his coat, and his breathing was labored. But when Ellie reached out her hand, he nuzzled it gently, a silent thank you, a bond already forming. As they walked down the dusty road toward home, people stared. Some shook their heads, others whispered. But Ellie kept going, her grip on the rope firm, her heart full of hope. When she finally reached her small wooden house at the end of the lane, her parents were waiting. Her father, Thomas, frowned deeply. "What is this?" he asked, stepping off the porch. "This is Storm," Ellie said. "I bought him." Thomas's face darkened. "You what?" "I couldn't leave him there," she said quickly. "He was being treated badly. I had to save him." Her mother, Grace, knelt beside her, eyes wide with disbelief. "You spent all your savings on a dying horse?" "No," Ellie insisted. "He's not dying. He just needs care." Thomas paced, running his hands through his hair. "We can barely feed ourselves." How are we supposed to take care of a sick horse? Ellie looked at Storm, who watched them both with tired eyes. Because it's the right thing to do. There was a long silence. Finally, Grace sighed. 1 week, she said. We'll try for 1 week. That week changed everything. Ellie built a makeshift shelter from old wood and tarps. She woke before dawn to bring fresh water and cut grass for Storm. She brushed his coat, whispered kind words into his ear, and stayed by his side even when he seemed too weak to lift his head. And slowly, something began to shift. By the 3rd day, Storm was standing longer. By the 5th, he was walking without limping. By the 7th, he trotted across the field behind the house, his eyes brighter, his spirit rekindled. Ellie knew then that she hadn't just saved a horse. She had found a friend, a champion. One morning, as Ellie checked on Storm before sunrise, an elderly man appeared at the fence. "Is that Storm?" he asked, his voice trembling. Ellie nodded. The man approached cautiously, examining the horse with growing awe. "This isn't Storm," he said. "This is Skyfire." Ellie blinked. "Skyfire?" The man introduced himself as Mr. Alden, a retired horse trainer who had raised Skyfire from birth. Years ago, he had sold him to Winmere Stables for $50,000, believing he would be cared for and trained for races. But instead, Skyfire had been neglected, starved, and hidden away. "And now," Mr. Alden said, eyes shining, "you've brought him back." Ellie's heart raced. "You mean he's worth $50,000, Mr. Alden confirmed. Ellie felt the world spin beneath her feet. She had bought a champion for less than $100. And now, she had proof of Mr. Calloway's lies. Together, they formed a plan. Mr. Alden helped train Skyfire, guiding Ellie and her parents through the process. They entered him in the annual Harvest Derby, the biggest race of the year, and word spread fast. A poor girl, a rescued horse, and a chance to expose a dishonest man. On the day of the race, the crowd gathered in excitement. Mr. Calloway arrived in his usual arrogance, smirking as he saw Ellie leading Skyfire to the track. "Well, look who's here," he teased. "The girl who bought trash." But when Skyfire stepped onto the track, the energy changed. The horse moved with grace and power, muscles rippling, eyes fierce. The crowd murmured in awe. Then the starting gun fired. Skyfire surged forward, swift and determined. For 3 years, he had been forgotten, mistreated, cast aside. Now, he ran not just for victory, he ran for justice. With every stride, he closed the gap. First place, second, then victory. The crowd erupted. Ellie cried happy tears as Skyfire crossed the finish line, victorious and free. And Mr. Calloway? He stood frozen, watching his reputation crumble before him. Reporters swarmed him. Questions flew. How could he have sold such a valuable horse for so little? Why had he allowed Skyfire to suffer? He had no answers, only regret. 6 months later, Ellie stood on a hill overlooking the New Hope Hollow Ranch, a sanctuary for horses and children alike. Skyfire grazed peacefully beside other rescued animals, while dozens of kids played and learned under the warm sun. Ellie had received offers to study at prestigious schools, but she chose to stay. Her family had found purpose. Her community had found hope, and the world had found a lesson. Sometimes, the greatest treasures come disguised as problems. If you enjoyed this story of courage, kindness, and redemption, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs a reminder that even the smallest hearts can create the biggest change. Leave a comment below. Tell us what touched you most, or share your own story of helping someone or something when no one else would. Because sometimes all it takes is one act of love to change everything.